No, no. I promise you, writers do not need the new MacBook Pro models that Apple announced this week. We do not. We also don't need pens, do we? We could use pencils. I mean, typewriters are still pretty good. Look, it remains true. The best value Apple notebook for you and me as a writer is the MacBook Air. But the new machines are excellent, and I have bought one. Let me try to justify myself to you and possibly also to my accountant. Okay. Hello, I'm impoverished. I am William Gallagher, and this is 58 Keys, which as ever, as always, is for writers like you and me who write on Macs and iPhones and iPads. I always say do subscribe because we have so much to talk about, but actually this time we barely got started on the 58 Keys 3 biscuit guides. These are the 45-minute, hour-long deep dives into specific writing apps. And even though just done one, Apple Notes, there's already a long list of requests in the comment section. Fantastic. Add to that. Be very grateful. Anyway, actually, also, there's a playlist on the 58 Keys channel, a whole series of videos about exactly how to buy the right Mac and iPhone and iPad for you. And it specifically says, yes, the MacBook Air is the best value, but still, we now have new MacBook Pro machines. So, look, short version. Apple has just launched a new 14-inch MacBook Pro and a revised 16-inch MacBook Pro. They both feature Apple's newest processors, and the short version is that this means they are wicked fast. Also, actually, wicked capable, if that's a thing, if that's a term. Long version. I mean, I could be wrong here because I was counting this on my fingers last night, but I make it that there are 20 different configurations you could buy of the 16-inch MacBook Pro and 49 of the 14-inch MacBook Pro. Plus, there is still available last year's 13-inch MacBook Pro, which comes in a piddling, a mere 8 configurations. They weren't even trying. This adds up to 77 varieties of MacBook Pro. Let's you and me go through each of them. Alternatively, stuff the 2020 13-inch MacBook Pro. Its appeal now is solely its price, which actually is not to be ignored. It starts at £1,300 or dollars, which is about $600 less than the new 14-inch MacBook Pro. But let's also be ruthless and completely ignore the 16-inch MacBook Pro. I mean, yeah, Apple makes this enormous laptop. It's quite incredibly powerful, and I want you and I to just toss it aside. Chiefly because of that one particular word, enormous. It used to be, actually, that the 16-inch model was not only quite a bit bigger than the 13-inch models, but it was also dramatically more powerful. There were circumstances. If you did a lot of photography or audio editing or video editing, there were lots of different things where you could actually find yourself putting up with the size of the 16-inch model in order to get the performance of the 16-inch model, but to me it really was putting up with that size. The 16-inch MacBook Pro is a boat, and it's an extremely expensive, costly boat. The 16-inch MacBook Pro is a yacht. Now there is a 14-inch model, and pretty much everything has changed because of it. The 14-inch model has a bigger screen than the 13-inch model. This is the quality of information you're getting here, and that's actually bigger enough that I was concerned the 16 was too big for me because I've had large notebooks before, and there are times when they are a real pain to carry around. But I was also conscious, very conscious, when I tried it, the 13-inch screen was just a bit too small for things I do a lot, including video editing and working on lots of documents. 14 appears to be the sweet spot, and I really hope it is, because that's what I've bought. But there is also this big difference now. There isn't the same gap in performance and power that there used to be between the 14 or 13-inch and the 16-inch models. The 14-inch and 16-inch MacBook Pro models now are pretty much the same in performance and power. And that means that, well, all right, they're also the same in being far more powerful than a writer like you and me can possibly need right now. I mean, typing in pages is not going to stress out these machines. Typing in Microsoft Word might. So again and again, Actually, I don't imagine I'm going to stop saying this for quite some time. The best value Apple laptop for a writer is the MacBook Air. It starts at $1,000 less than the 14-inch MacBook Pro. Sorry, I wasn't actually sure you stayed around to listen to anything more after that. Okay. I admit that my chief reason for buying a 14-inch MacBook Pro is video editing. But I'll tell you also that what I'm really looking forward to is how fast that machine is going to be at, well, everything. My entire writing business depends on Macs these days. And now I will have one with me wherever I go, and a very strong one. And I'll have it for years. I am looking at this as being an investment for the next many years of work, which on the one hand means it is smart looking to get a powerful machine because that will last longer. Unfortunately, on the other hand, it kind of means I ought to have been smarter and thought more about the future. The point where the future and the present collide, there's a special name for it, it's called the price. I do have a project actually that funded a MacBook Pro. It's fantastic, but what it funded was an older model, and these new ones are considerably more expensive. But I thought that might happen. Nonetheless, I held out for the rumoured 14-inch model because of its screen size. I held out in the pretty sure expectation that any new 2021 models would be significantly faster, significantly better. And they are, but they're also significantly more expensive. So I've been adding my own money to this, to the funding, and it's not like I think you're going to be terribly interested in my account spreadsheet juggling things, but you might actually find it useful to know some of the consequences of the decisions. I've ordered the base 14-inch MacBook Pro, and I made only one change to it, even though I would like to have made more. I increased the storage in it to 2 terabytes. That's because I've learned the extremely hard way how difficult it is to work on a Mac without enough storage space. But I said there were these 49 possible configurations of the 14-inch MacBook Pro. As well as changing storage space like I did, you can add RAM, or what Apple now calls unified memory. And you can change the processor too. That's because Apple actually launched the M1 Pro and the M1 Max processors, and both are available in the 14-inch and 16-inch MacBook Pro. Basically, the M1 Pro is much faster than last year's M1 processor, and the M1 Max kind of makes a laughingstock out of both of them, really. That's the technical difference there. If you are going to spend a lot of money, if you're intending to future-proof a MacBook Pro to make sure you get a machine that will give you great views for the longest possible time, you should try to get the most of everything in it that you can. And that means the best M1 Max processor. That means 8 terabytes of storage that's available at the moment. That means 64 gigabytes of RAM at the moment. And that would mean just under £6,000 or dollars. Considering I know most of the time you and I will be just writing, just typing on the machine, I'm already a little twitchy about getting the most powerful version. And there isn't a chance I can justify to my soul spending the price of a car for just typing. So the M1 Max, actually, that was out of my consideration immediately and pretty easily, in fact. Even though with the M1 Pro on its own, there are variations in the M1 Pro to do with how many cores it has. Processing cores for the general work, I suppose, and graphics cores for doing anything graphical on screen. The more the better, the more the cost. Video editing, that's a bit graphical, so I am sure that I would be able to see the difference with more graphics cores. But again, actually, mostly this time looking at the price, figuring all of this out on a really complicated spreadsheet, I pretty easily and pretty quickly decided on the base M1 Pro. Where I struggled was with RAM and storage space. Storage space, it's easy to understand. The more of it you can possibly have, the better. There is also the issue that, like I say, if you get too little, you're going to have a very bad and a very frustrating time on your Mac. And you're spending a lot of money, whatever you get. You don't really want to be buying pain. There's also the fact that you have to make that painful decision now. You can't add storage space later. I considered 4 terabytes. I considered that an awful lot. but cost to space, I had to go for 2 terabytes. Memory is harder. I mean, again, yeah, the more the better, but with Apple's new unified memory, things are different than they have ever been with any machine, not just Macs. It used to be that, yeah, you had to get a lot of RAM if you were buying a powerful machine to do, again, say, video editing. You just had to. Now, the way this new unified memory works is just much better at what it does. You can do much more with much less unified memory, except I don't know how to quantify that. So I figured, be safe, go for 32 gigabytes. My wish list actually for the MacBook Pro was that it would have a 14-inch screen, that I could get 32 gigabytes of RAM, and then I could have 4 terabytes of storage. But then my Office Mac has just 8 gigabytes of unified memory. And I have actually had problems with the Mac running out of system memory. It looks now like that's actually a fault with a particular app I'm using. There's an app I'm using in beta, and it looks like that's actually what's causing the problem. Otherwise, I've not even noticed what RAM I've got. So my advice is forever going to be that you get as much memory and as much storage as you can, but that bit about as you can is key, isn't it? I hope, I've made it sound as if I have made a rational, considered decision here. A rational, considered decision to spend an awful lot of money. It's certainly considered. Actually, I mean, I have, as well as the spreadsheets overnight and things since the launch, I've been waiting several months to buy, holding out for a 14-inch model, and now it's here. Well, it's brilliant. I can get on with the project that I was funded for. And that is always the thing, isn't it? Not the machine, possibly not the price, but what we use it for. We're writers, you and I, which means we are writing, we are creating things, we are making things happen. And when we can afford it, machines like this do help us like nothing else. Now, I hope at least that what we've talked through means you too can cut 77 different MacBook Pro configurations down to 1. But in the meantime, that's it for this edition of 58 Keys. Thank you for watching, and thank you for helping me figure out how I'm shortly going to explain all or most of this to my bank. Don't think about that. Let's you and me instead think about writing some more while you take care of yourself, and I'll see you soon.